Okay. Hello and welcome everyone to the very first episode, very first recording ever of Corner Culture. My name's Kalen. I'm coming at you from Alhambra, California today. Yes, I'm in California right now, but I'm not going to be here for long. I'm getting my ass out of here as quick as possible and moving to Texas or Tennessee or Florida or maybe even Japan. My my wife actually brought up the idea that we might actually want to move to Japan. We'll see about that. I don't speak Japanese at all. So anyway, I'm mostly just testing this shit out. This is it's my first like podcast streaming style recording of this. I'm trying out this new program. I'm learning how to do scenes. I got the lights and the camera and the mic set up today for the first time. Checking out how everything looks, making sure I'm ready to do this. My neighbors are noisy. We'll see if it's picked up on the camera. Picked up on the microphone. Who knows? Anyway, my name's Kalen. I'm the host, owner, and operator of Corner Culture. This is the first podcast style video that's going to be coming out. And so yeah, let's get to it. So I'm gonna switch over to scene number 2. Check that out. Cool is that? Anyway, so what I want to talk about is this article that I found from DC Inquirer. I have no idea who that is, what that is, or any kind of reputability about it. But let's check it out anyway. It says, Trump is right. The Presidential Records Act allows presidents to take whatever documents they want. Let's do a little fact check while we're at it, but we'll do that after we read through here. On Tuesday, 45th president and leading 2024 presidential candidate Donald Trump pleaded not guilty to all 37 fraudulent counts relating to him supposedly mishandling classified documents from special counsel Jack Smith. President Trump has turned Jack Smith's frivolous federal indictment of him on its head as he cites the Presidential Records Act as a defense. Under the Presidential Records Act, which is civil, not criminal, a quote, under the Presidential Records Act, which is civil, not criminal, I had every right to have these documents, Trump said after returning from Miami during a speech at his Trump National Golf Club in New Jersey. The Presidential Records Act is a 1978 law that allows presidents to decide what records to keep and take, regardless of what the National Archives and Records Administration thinks. Trump is correct, as per usual, to use this act as a defense. Okay, so that's the key here, and I want to actually check on this. Senior attorney Michael Bekesha, a man who lost a case against former President Bill Clinton for taking White House audio tapes when he left office and kept them in his sock drawer, explains Clinton was safe because he was a president who saw it fit to take the documents before his term ended. Interesting. So the lawyer who is defending Trump once sued Clinton for basically the same thing, according to this, and lost. Very interesting. The same is true with Mr. Trump, Bekesha writes in an opinion piece for the Wall Street Journal. He adds, quote, Mr. Trump, like Mr. Clinton, took those boxes with him when he left office. As of noon on January 20th, 2021, whatever remained at the White House was presidential records. Whatever was taken by Mr. Trump was not. That was the position of the Justice Department in 2010 and the ruling by Judge Jackson in 2012. Interesting. So now everyone understands the President's Records Act plus Clinton's sock case totally exonerated me from... Okay, that must be a quote from Trump. More quote in an op-ed, blah, blah, blah. The bottom line is that if Mr. Trump or his lawyers allege, even without his testifying, that he declassified the documents, a criminal charge of unauthorized possession of classified documents will be difficult to prove. A criminal charge of unauthorized possession of classified documents will be difficult to prove. That doesn't mean that a prosecutor could not get a grand jury to indict this particular ham sandwich. It does mean that it's unlikely that the conviction against Mr. Trump would be sustainable. Quote, based on what we know, we believe that there is no legitimate basis for a criminal indictment of Mr. Trump based on the material that was found at Mar-a-Lago. Okay, so they don't link us to anything, but it says the Presidential Records Act is a 1978 law that allows presidents to decide. Okay, so the President Records Act of 1978. Let's fucking check this out. Presidential Records Act of 1978. Record Act. Okay, archive.gov. Presidential Records Act, PRA of 1978. I gotta see if there's anywhere we can find this here. Governs the official records of presidents and vice presidents that were created or received after January 20th, 1981. So that would include Trump and Clinton for that matter. The PRA, Presidential Records Act, changed the legal ownership of the official records of the president from the private to public, and established a new statutory structure under which presidents and subsequently NARA must manage the records of their administrations. The PRA was amended in 2014, which established several new provisions. Okay. So the first thing it did establishes public ownership of all presidential records and defines the term presidential records. Requires that vice presidential records be treated in the same way as presidential. Places the responsibility for the custody and management of incumbent presidential records with the president. That's interesting. Places the responsibility for custody and management of incumbent presidential records with the president. Interesting. Requires that the president and his staff take all practical steps to file personal records separately from presidential records. Okay. Allows the incumbent president to dispose of records that no longer have administrative, historical, informational, or evidentiary value once the views of the archivist of the United States on the proposed disposal have been obtained in writing. Okay, interesting. Establishes a law that any incumbent presidential records, whether textual or electronic, held on courtesy storage by the archivist, remain in the exclusive legal custody of the president, and that any request or order for access to such records must be made to the president, not NARA. By the way, I don't know what NARA is. National Association of Records Administration or something. I don't know. Anyway. Okay. Establishes that presidential records automatically transfer into the legal custody of the archivist as soon as the president leaves office. Okay, that's interesting. Establishes that presidential records automatically transfer into the legal custody of the archivist as soon as the president leaves office. Okay. Point against Trump on this one. Establishes a process by which the president may restrict and the public may obtain access to these records after the president leaves office. Okay. Specifically, the PRA allows for public access to president's records through the Freedom of Information Act. Okay. So this is maybe setting up FOIA. Interesting. Codifies the process by which former and incumbent presidents conduct reviews for executive privilege prior to public release of records by NARA. Okay, whatever. Establishes procedures for Congress, courts, and subsequent administrations to obtain special access to records from NARA that remain closed to the public. Following a privilege review period by the former and incumbent presidents, the procedures governing such special access requests continue to be governed by the relevant provisions. All right. Establishes preservation requirements for official business conducted using non-official electronic messaging accounts. Any individual creating presidential records must use non-official electronic messaging accounts unless that individual copies an official account as the message is created or forwards a complete copy of the record to an official messaging account. So, okay, that's just dumb. prevents an individual who has been convicted of a crime related to the review, retention, removal, or destruction of records from being given access to any original records. Interesting. So I don't really read anything in here, and I know this is just sort of a summary, but I don't read anything in here that really says one way or the other. It does say here that it establishes that presidential records automatically transfer into the legal custody of the archivist as soon as the president leaves office. But then again, there's kind of this question of what is public and what is not. It says down here that there was something that is not public. So it's like, so they're saying some records are public and some are not public. Yeah, that remain closed to the public. So there are records that are closed to the public. So I'm not. I don't get from here, from this reading, whether or not those records would be included in that or not, or excluded from that. Not really sure here. You know what we should do? We should ask our friend old Chat GPT. Oh, come on, Chat, help us out here. We're gonna put you up on to level 4 because I want to get a real clear answer. So let's go back here and let's find the quote where they said, does the what is it called? Presidential Records Act of 1978 allow for a president to take whatever documents they want before leaving office? Presidential Records Act of 78 establishes that the official records of the president and his staff are owned by the United States and must be preserved. The act effectively ended the practice of presidents retaining ownership of their official records, which was in place before PRA. So retaining ownership, I guess the ownership and possession are not the same thing. PRA mandates the preservation of all presidential records, which are defined broadly to include any documentary materials created or received by the president or his staff in the course of conducting business that relate to the constitutional, statutory, or ceremonial duties of the president. This includes documents, papers, letters, books, photographs, recordings, emails, and other digital or physical items. The president may not remove these records before leaving office. However, it's worth noting that personal records, which are distinct from presidential records, may be removed. Okay, that's new. I didn't know that. So I guess now on my mind the question is, the documents that he possesses, are they personal or are they presidential? I have no idea. Personal records might include a president's private diary or personal communications with family members, for instance. I guess that would not be the case then. These must be presidential because I believe he was communicating with other government officials, which would be presidential in nature. Therefore, these would not be personal. These would be presidential documents, if I am reading this correctly. In practice, there is a transfer of presidential records from the outgoing administration to the National Archives and Records Administration. That's what NARA stands for. At the end of each presidential term, NARA then has the responsibility to preserve and eventually make these records available to the public, subject to restrictions for things like national security, blah, blah, blah. Therefore, no, the president cannot take whatever documents they want before leaving office under the PRA. There are strict rules to ensure the preservation of official records for historical and governmental purposes. Interesting. So, now, we would have to run this same question again through chat using the Dan hack and ensure that, none of the sort of algorithmic filters from Silicon Valley are being implemented here. But I don't see why they would be for this. This is pretty nuanced and specific. It doesn't say anything about Trump in here or any other president for that matter. So I suspect this is not going to be, one of those kind of things. However, I am curious. Again, I don't know anything about the DC Enquirer, and it's,
whether or not it's a reputable news source. But I happened upon this article and I thought, the I thought this would be really easy to fact check really quick for my first video and just do something really quick on that and just I don't know. Maybe anybody that happens upon this video has something that they can bring to the conversation and enlighten me as to why either my assessment so far is correct or maybe why it's incorrect. Why is it that Trump was correct in taking the documents, whatever documents he wanted, according to the PRA, or am I correct? And in fact, he was wrong, and he was not. He is not allowed to take whatever he wants, according to the PRA. If it's something else that's not related to the PRA, that has nothing to do with the topic of this video. I'm specifically trying to ask the question: does the PRA actually allow for Trump to have possession of those documents before leaving office? Well, anyway, want to say thanks to y'all for stopping by and watching some rando online who you definitely don't know and have never met or heard before in your life talk about some random issue about which he most certainly has zero expertise, because I am not an expert in anything. I am a massive broad generalist at best. Check out my store, kosatoshi.shop. It's on the homepage, and I'll put it in the description as well. I got a bunch of affiliate links for Bitcoin stuff. I'm a huge Bitcoin maxi, so if you like Bitcoin or if you want to get into it, check out my website. I got a bunch of stuff on there. Thanks for watching, and see y'all later.